Chilly here with Sirius Talis Moon Sol Hour, and Ascendant and Midheaven ruled by Mercury. Mercury at 29 degrees Aquarius in the 6th house with Saturn in the 7th and Jupiter in the 11th. Sun is 17 degrees Aquarius and the Moon is 16 degrees Libra, applying to oppose Chiron. Now, this may be a good time to talk about health-related issues and a discussion about the restriction on choices. So, when I was making an accidental vegan sushi um, at my home, I was thinking back because Aquarius is my 12th house, and 12th house has to do with kettle and mental health and hospitals. Um, and so I was thinking about the way kettle is treated. And thinking back to all of my food experiments that I did when Uranus was in my second house, um, which has to do with food. So I tried raw veganism, and then I had binge eating. um, tried to be a vegetarian when I was working at McDonald's when I was in high school. Not joking, not joking. I had no credit card. I was working for a credit card company. And before that, I worked for 2, 3 years in McDonald's, um, completely vegetarian because I didn't know what vegan was. And then when I tried vegan, it was raw veganism. Um, yeah, I didn't try keto. I mean, keto. I don't know. Um, and now thinking about food sovereignty and the fact that the natural, what we call weeds, basically, is the most nutritious, some of the most nutritious food, whether we eat animal food or not. Um, the many things that came up around that. First of all, plant sensitivity. Um, I know that astrological magicians have a way and an hour and usually cover the plant before they pick up everything. And the plants do communicate. Um, and then there are the attempts to corrupt that communication. Now, one of the main points, and I remember when Uranus was about to conjoin Aries, and it was before the years of the Me Too. So I saw that there were ladies. I was trying raw veganism, then I saw there was a lady that talked about she went out of like a cult or an abusive husband, and she was watching actually 50 Shades of Grey, and Grey reminded her of her ex-boyfriend or husband. Um, and I was like, oh, what a refreshing take, because I was sick of all this so-called. I mean, Hans Medema was the one that pointed that out, and then he called his wife a whore, which is a part of their weird programming. Um, but they would try to access the libidinal centers of infants and try to program them to have pleasure, to basically confuse their pleasure. And this is where that would conjoin with rape and stuff that would affect their sexuality. Um, and so that lady was speaking about beginning to veganize all of her food because cows are also raped. And I think I was trying to roll veganism at the time. Here is something. Well, I was in academia dealing with attempts to hack my nervous system and all kind of dark occult. Shout out to Lida Cephas talking about the fact that this is way more commonly practiced than people believe, and of course it happened in academia, which led to me also eventually taking a break from academia, even though the paradigm um, that I had for my theoretical background for my thesis, from the perspective of philosophy of science, which is the late Larry Loudon, um, was already pointing to the issue, which is technologies, and technologies are classified, which would turn what seems like pseudoscience into science, including the use of those dark occult. Now, at the time, there was a lady, and she was so-called advocating for sex work. She did not see what was happening to me, which was an attempt to traffic me, and she was vegan. She was vegan. Soon enough, I ran into an article that talks about embodying the predator for people who were sexually abused. And I start eating fish and meat again. Analyzing what happened there. First of all, my attempts on raw veganism did not yield. I was slicing two big piles of parsley and drinking that every day. My my fridge looked amazing. My salads looked like I'm royal, but I did not have iron. Even though there was nothing other than raw veganism, and then I began to have binge eating. Um, so, and I think at the time later I would try to take amphetamines, but it was before the amphetamines time. I think the amphetamines were something that already happened afterwards because I couldn't concentrate anymore. Now, other factors were not the food, there were many other factors. Again, it was an attempt to traffic me. Of course, they needed amphetamines. Um, and when I think about my attempts to regain my sovereignty and the juxtaposition, and I remember I joked about that lady, and I had one of the things that I said was people that don't eat animals eat people. Now, I knew nothing about the elites, okay? um, but just the fact that I saw a vegan woman that did not discern and always incompetent about doing something when her colleague is going through attempts of being trafficked by a man that does mockery ritual on her to my face. Now I spoke up about that. I defended basically his mockery of her. Not defended him, defended her in the face of that mockery ritual. And the juxtaposition where I saw, okay, this is a vegan woman. If what that lady that was sick of gray was doing, which is to veganize her food, which seemed logical, would be working, then I wouldn't meet a vegan woman that doesn't derape her life. Okay, and I was looking at it from not from perspective of judgment, but from perspective of trying to see what works. This is exactly the core issue of psyops, MK often, even MK ultra, because it's the psychology interface, and trying to see what a person's belief is, then juxtapose to break down the person's beliefs, values, structures, and systems. Now, because I have already undergone my life energy being misused, then I was more susceptible. Now, I'm not saying that veganism is right or veganism is wrong. What I'm analyzing here is a decision making process. And by the way, juxtaposed to that lady, I began to have dreams of how I began to feel myself as the salmon being like being dying and so on and so forth. And I thought, okay, then that's probably meaning I should try veganism again, because that was something that I was confused about. And by the way, I still am. Now, confusion is something that goes together with sexual boundary violation. Even when it comes to the type of food advices that could actually sustain our bones, nobody would talk about the mellows and the amaranths. Only right now I actually see this type of talks, but nobody would talk about this, and the historical food is not there because that necessitates real estate and or having the ability, the mobility to live in a place that's off grid, which where Uranus was in the sign of real estate. It wasn't before Uranus ingressed into Taurus that I saw all the off grid. And so, and then there were the chemtrails, which knowing about it was like, okay, that could be the missing link. That could be the thing where, hey, maybe we could sustain. And whether veganism is also about learning how and when to pick the food, um, and how and when to cook it. Um, okay, there's a whole lot of things that we lost, and the communication with the plants and so on and so forth. But we lost it because of molestation and rape. And then it's not like that. Even when I was eating meat, it's not like I had the access to the actual meat. In fact, I had a roommate, and she had a gut problem, so she had to buy. She was trying keto is something else. Keto is astrology, keto, and she needed to buy the finest meat and so on and so forth. And it was so expensive, and she was a student, which which made it even more expensive. So it was obvious that that's not the meat that I was getting. I don't know if she was getting the actual meat. And I'll tell you a story. When I was in around my teenage years, um, we have left our some of our pets by a person who was a hunter when we were traveling to Europe. And when we came back, it was before the subprime crisis, so we could live off of the interest. It was actually cheaper to travel than to rent. And so um, Yeah, the shekel wasn't like that always. Now, and so what that person had a story. He was a hunter, and one time he was going to hospital, and they checked him and said he had really low cholesterol, and he really should eat meat. And he said, "Well, I am a hunter." And I said, "Okay, that makes it obvious, because this meat doesn't have cholesterol." So, um, so that tells us. But the doctor's recommendation before that was to eat meat. And, and they knew that the meat of hunting doesn't have cholesterol. I don't know what for doctor was he seeing, but that's our medicine. So it wasn't like I was getting the meat that was, and what I simply seen was, hey, that process of veganizing my food to recover from sexual boundary violation doesn't work. Maybe I do need to embody the predator. And when I think about it, there are a lot of people that were told that they should harm women when they had war trauma, which means they were raped at war. That was the trauma. And then basically, what they would probably do to them is to juxtapose them. And this is how ritual abuse works. It tries to break down the belief systems of people, confuse and desensitize them. Now, again, I don't know if it's good to be vegan or it's good to be this, but in any case, it's not like those animals are actually getting the nourishment and nutrition, nor do the store bought food. Okay, I was talking about freedom eggs, and the egg yolk is still yellow. It ain't yellow when they're free. And so everybody that had one breakfast that a person actually grows chicken knows. And now they want to have automation of the entire growth of a kettle, juxtaposed to wanting us to eat bugs. Which, by the way, I thought was a great idea, because I was like, oh, if we can get our protein from bug powder, that it was to that level of experimentation that I did with food. I don't know what was I thinking, which is, by the way, beyond of a terrible idea, but I think that this is because of the excess that was created by industrializing the entire life. So, yeah, I dated a biologist once that told me about the bug powder. And I was trying to think how, as a raw vegan, I can get my protein needs met. So, eat the mellow. Eat mellow leaves. Eat amaranth leaves. Now, here's the thing with all of the chemicals, those things still grow, but I don't know if they have like all the nutrients. They are the plants that grow the fertility of the soil. So they should be good. Um, Now, I was talking about the desensitization rituals and how even if we did not go into an actual order, we were exposed, and it's usually done by campaigns, and it is meant to create a nothing means anything. I saw it definitely in 2007, 8, even 2006, definitely during COVID, and probably there was an attempt right before the Me Too. And these are juxtapositions that are meant to exhaust our conscience while exposing it to completely unacceptable things. And that can feel like whatever belief system or course of actions people try doesn't seem to work. This technique is known at least since Genghis Khan. Definitely the modern, Westernly, we know it as MK Ultra and MK Alpha. Um, and there is something beyond, how should I say that? To do that to a person, one enmeshes in that. Because it's taking a certain route and saying, okay, how can I break down the pattern? How it's basically intentional creation of illogical world. And that does expose that the rape and the torture were the origin wound. Because they were harming identity and they were making people. But here's the thing, to create the rapist was raped. Initiation is embodiment. And trying to break down embodiment doesn't bring initiation or enlightenment. It brings very big wars. Now, definitely it pertains to the spirit of the time. And by the way, whenever something like that is exposed, there are attempts to destabilize the timeline to dissolve and corrupt it. Like I said, in 1996, there was the White March for the True case. It was kind of like the Epstein of, and he was kidnapping children himself. And right at that time, right at that year, there were rituals done, juxtaposed to basically the White March. Same as 2019. There were a lot of discussions about ritual abuse in 2019 that I wasn't aware of because I was going through torture. So, what it would take for us to understand whether we can be vegan would be to have a land with soil that is not chemitrailed, and of course, to not be ritually abused and raped, because that would dysregulate the nervous system and cause either inability to eat or malabsorption of vitamins. Both lead to what people call either binge eating or what the Christians loved to call gluttony and even define it as sin. There is no gluttony when people are not ritually abused or raped. And then, even if we would still need to eat animal produce, we would have the land to actually have good treatment and nourishment to the animals. Now, a little bit about Neptune in Aries and doctors, because Neptune has a dual effect and it also rules surgery, particularly in sign of Mars, brain surgery, even, and it also rules psychiatry. Aries rules sovereignty. The fact that our medical people had to go through desensitization ritual to be able to treat patients is a big deal. And this is a big wake-up call to we the people. The co-presence of Neptune and Chiron in Aries is something we definitely don't want to miss out on, because 2026 Chiron leaves and ingresses to Taurus. These are the last months of Chiron in Aries. Chiron ingress to Aries 2019-18, where patient sovereignty and the sense of self we became. Now, Mars can also mean rape, misuse, corrupting the frequency of Mars is rape, because Ares, god of war, was basically the only god that killed the rapists. He defended from rape. And so Chiron is the wound of identity was created by rape. That is the DID, dissociative identity disorder. Neptune is a big word for dissociation, is a Neptune thing. And by the way, Neptune also rules sacrifice. So even blood donation is done with a needle that is basically a bloodletting ritual that is painful, rather than something that could simply be unfelt and be practiced more times or for longer period. Chiron really pointed out to the fact that we are our own doctor. I think nobody right now in 2026 can say that they did not have at least one incident in their lives where they needed to listen to themselves. And by the way, any doctor that actually respects themselves would agree. And Chiron Aries also showed us that what was the cause of inflammation, or in traditional Chinese medicine terms, lack of energy flow or blockage to energy flow, which is life energy, which is Kundalini energy, which is sexual energy, even for asexual people, is rape and or the psychological torture that is a part of. Because people think, oh, think about the Me Too. I was surprised that people weren't talking about the fact that there's a lot of precedence that is mind control and attempting to create rapport on a spiritual dream level, energy level, before there is an actual harassment. It is a ritual where the perpetrator could definitely be carrying out something that he has a handler, even as perpetrators. Okay? Frequency-based technology, the same technology that was used to show that people during channeling have different neural activity than when they're not channeling, that same type of making the invisible visible can show a road, a trajectory of where a consciousness takes on a form, and so on and so forth. The I am is something that requires sexual sovereignty. And this also goes to sexual orientation. So, all those significations of Mars, sexual boundaries enforced, which is God Ares killing the rapists, the I am, a sense of self, mind consciousness, food that does not cause inflammation, real estate, which we need to grow the food, clarity of the air, which is a part of real estate, because the sky is also real estate. We think about the rare earth minerals, so what's underground, but also what's above. We were made to think that a home that has from the rare earth minerals to the sky a private ownership territory is a mythical creation, where in fact it is the very basis for the coherence of our I am. And so, what would be happening is the dual effect of the straw that broke the camel's back, where people begin to burst out and identify that their sovereignty is being violated, where previously they have simply been desensitized. And the gnosis, the understanding of what that I am on a holistic level, Neptune is, with Chiron, the healer, the embodiment, embodying the sense of self. Okay? Embodying the sense of self is already Chiron going Aries, Taurus, Aries, Taurus. We're basically incarnating. And this is why Neptune in Aries would be both globalizing something but also miraculously healing other things. We lost touch to ground, not by lifting off, because when we ground ourselves we do take off, but we lost touch with ground when there was a collective calling to embody the intelligence of not raping children, or um, tantric embodiment within self-pleasure and in lovemaking. By the way, part of the hormonal effect is that anomalies in puberty, both being very early and very late. So now we lost touch with the ground because we were not embodying that. Sent us to a whole Kali Yuga, or Dark Ages. The Me Too went too far, the Me Too went too far, the Me Too went too far, the Me Too went too far. Oh, what's that those graves, mama? Oh, that's from the big war. Oh, when Hitler, no, 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 no. Before that. So now we are going to the before that, but way bigger. But at the same time, nothing has to happen. Nobody actually has to die over not raping. Like, okay, just like nobody actually has to die in two world wars, not just one, for women to have representation and their own house, bank account, or whatever was the unit of economy. Wealth hoarding is due to addictions that are due to ritual abuse, that are due to rape and torture, of being tortured, raped, and desensitized, and then torturing, raping, and desensitizing. And energy siphoning from other people that have their own life energy, real estate, sky, ground, underground, land, housing, creative power, and so on and so forth. It's not knowledge for the elite or for monks. And when we talk about wealth redistribution, we're talking about embodiment of our sense of self and life energy, not being siphoned and not siphoning. That's our housing first, that's our real estate. Now, the more people are being dehoused, we see Agenda 2030 being implemented in Palestine. Now, of course, when Palestinian women were treated like they were in a digital prison by men, okay, it builds up to something. Now, of course, that affects the accessibility for making the right choice regarding food. What's happening? Venus, Venus. Moon is applying to oppose Chiron, Mars 11 degree, Aquarius, Saturn 29 degrees Pisces. Is Mercury ingress? Not yet. Twenty-five, 25, 25. Degree of Aries, which is ruled by that Mars 11 degrees. So, while the moon is still in Hasta Nakshatra, I'm going to post this episode.